Well, good afternoon, everyone. We still have some people joining us, but we'll go on and get started out of respect for your time. My name is Lisa Stone, and I'm the Senior Vice President for Professional Learning here at Cognia. We are so happy that you joined us today to reimagine professional learning. I would like to introduce our panelists today. We have Amy McVeigh, our Vice President. We have Dr. Nicole Reeves, a Senior Director, and Rachel Havey, a Senior Director as well. So thank you, as we are educators supporting educators in the very important role of providing professional learning for teachers and leaders.
Thank you, Lisa. We're excited to be here today. And I just want to kind of lay out how we're going to go in the direction we're going to go today and the conversation. We do have the chat open, so feel free to ask questions or provide comments in the chat as we go along today. We want this to be as participatory as we can. So we're going to start off by talking about Cognia's experience, what we are, where we are in the world of education, and how we support educators across the globe. From there, we're going to talk about how we are reimagining professional learning using data and the importance of that data to drive our professional learning. And then we know our professional learning is only as good as the support that we have from our leaders. So we're going to talk about how do we empower leaders. And finally, we're excited to get to share some stories from our schools about how they are transforming professional learning, and we'll leave with some next steps for you. So you might get a little homework too. As we jump in to talk about Cognia, Cognia's mission and vision look at how we can impact and inspire education providers to advance and enable pathways of success for all learners. Our mission is to be a trusted partner with you. So thus, reimagining professional learning is a part of that discussion. How can we make a difference with professional learning so that we have an impact all the way down to the classroom with every learner? Just a little bit about Cognia. Cognia is in 90 plus countries now. We've been serving schools for 130 years, and we're excited to celebrate that. We are in 40,000 schools working with 800,000 educators and 17 million learners across the world. When we look at where Cognia is going with professional learning, we like to think of this model that's very different from the sit and get 6 hours that we all experienced when we went into education. Our model starts out with strategy and planning. How can we work with school and district leaders to plan professional learning that's based on data and that will have real impact in the classrooms? From there, we move into shared learning, and that shared learning helps to develop that common understanding of the expectations, processes, and procedures, and successful instructional strategies. We don't stop with the shared learning like our old models. We move into the implementation. What does it look like in the classroom? Is it being used in the classroom? How do we monitor it in the classroom? And then from there, how do we provide real-time feedback and coaching? Once we've provided that feedback and coaching, we have that important step of impact and reflection, which leads us back to planning for our next cycle of improvement. We feel like with this model, we allow teachers to be able to really apply their learning in the classroom as they go along, instead of just the sit and get. So with that, Nicole is going to talk to us a little bit about how we use data.
So we are Cognia is in such a great position that we get to see and learn from all of our clients, constituents, partners, however you want to define them. And as a result, we have all of these massive amounts of survey data, parent responses, teacher responses, different stakeholder responses, classroom observations. We use this data to help us develop content based on the biggest need of what we're seeing in these schools across the globe. That said, one of the things that we've noticed in our in this current cycle of work and year with our different members and partners, if you go to the next one, Rachel, is that we notice that over a third of our partners are having trouble with these three standards. Now, Cognia does create and update performance standards for what is best practices in schools, what are quality schools look like. And those standards, those 30 standards, are used to help schools drive improvement and see what they're doing well and what they need to do well. So over a third of our schools are struggling with those three standards that you see on the slide right now, that learners are immersed in an environment, that leaders have, regularly evaluate instructional programs, or that we actually understand the learner needs and those needs drive the design, delivery, and application of professional learning. Well, that helps to inform us and where we need to go. When we look at additional data, if you will advance, Rachel. We do have another tool that helps to inform our decisions for creation of support and development of content. We have a tool that is research-based that uses Class, Danielson, Marzano, and a mix of our own personal, organizational observations of what works in classrooms and doesn't. But we have these 7 learning environments that, if effectively created, can increase and improve student engagement in the classroom. Based on that data, if you look at the next slide, you will see we have some common areas. Over the course of time, this is in the last year's average ratings, but over the course of time, we always see, very contrary to what many people might believe, is that classrooms are well managed and supportive. And many schools and school systems strive to ensure that everybody has equitable resources and access to learning. But if you look at progress monitoring or engaging students in an active learning environment, which is very different to being on task, or to setting high expectations and helping students to achieve them, those are areas where we can work. Of course, digital learning has its own set of needs, and that's different at every site when you depend on or think about, even if they have one-to-one ratio, what is the connectivity, availability, and all those kinds of things. But these data help us to make some decisions for us at our level. If you go to the next slide, we'd like to know, what are some data you have? I know almost every school leader or school system personnel, they do some types of needs assessment. So if you would put in the chat, what data do you have to see if your professional learning meets the instructional needs of teachers or impacts student learning? So what do we have in the chat? We see some observations, learning walks, student performance data, surveys from different stakeholder groups, observation data. Trying to go through and see what else we have. Different classroom walkthrough tools. I see people talking about our teacher observation tool, in-house surveys. Obviously,
Go
ahead.
And we like to see lots of people using Elliot, our student engagement tool.
I like the one that Jessica put, professional growth plan goals, because we do know that there are system-wide initiatives, there are school-wide initiatives, and of course, individual teachers have individual needs as well. So balancing the needs of our individual teachers to meet the learning needs of the students can be a challenge. Thank you guys for sharing all the different data sources you guys use to help make those determinations.
And I hope as we move through, you'll look back at the data. What a wealth of data for you guys to see what other people are doing. I just saw empathy interviews, exit interviews. So lots of different ways to really measure if we're having an impact with our professional learning.
That same data can be used to measure as well if implementation is going well. You would hope to see some growth or improvement. Rachel?
So many buttons to push. Thank you, Nicole. And thank you to everybody in the chat. sharing all of the different pieces that you all are utilizing. Actually, I'm going to kick this back over to Amy to talk a little more in depth about some of these pieces that we are utilizing with our data.
I think I can.
One of
Go
the
ahead.
exciting things about all the data that we do have is it allows us to look at professional learning needs. So some of the needs that we've looked at over the past few years is empowering students. How do we provide voice and choice for students so that they're actively engaged in their learning and that it has a connection to real life, which we know is vital to the success of our students? We also offer strategic thinking and planning that allows us to help schools and districts set goals and plan not only at a high level, but also all the way down to implementation. What does it look like, including 30, 60, 90 days? And it's all, again, based on data. So we're using data to be able to develop those plans. One of the things about strategic thinking and planning that I think is so vital to its success, and we'll talk about that later with one of our partners, is that it's a living, breathing document. It's no longer something you place on the shelf and check the box, but it's something that you can change as your circumstances and data change. We also have leadership for the future. What does it look like for our leaders? We know and we talk about the teacher shortage and teacher retention, but we also have a leader shortage and a leader retention issue. And with navigating change, we hope to be able to provide professional learning for leaders based on identified effective behaviors and then customized and tailored to exactly what they need to work on. We also have formative instruction, the informative instructional process, which looks at what is driving instruction in the classroom, how students are using, how teachers are using that feedback to be able to make daily changes to instructions for student success, which leads us right into the differentiation. What does it look like to differentiate? We work to develop a really intense definition of differentiation for schools and districts so that everyone has the same understanding of differentiation versus individualization. And finally, we look at how we cultivate teacher growth. So just like we look at student growth and student engagement, we look at the behaviors that we know help teachers to become successful. And then we work with teachers in that model to be able to provide them support and understanding. Rachel, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Amy. So you have your data. What do you do next? We asked all of you when you registered for this webinar, what elements are part of your planning and delivery of professional learning? We asked questions around, do you have data-driven needs that guide your professional learning? Do you have customized professional learning plans that are created to align with your district goals? Do you have interactive sessions and workshops, ongoing coaching and mentoring throughout and integrated into your daily practice, and effectiveness that is evaluated to be refined and make changes on a regular basis? So we're going to talk about how we really have all of those things when we are providing and giving and working through professional learning. Because as a leader, we want to know how you can be empowered to make a difference with professional learning. So I'm going to ask you to take a quick question. I'm going to share some ways that we do that. But again, in that chat, if you want to share a little bit about how you do use these 5 areas that you said are happening in your institutions. Most of you checked all 5, so that's excellent and amazing. We're really excited to hear more. And some of you only had a few. So how are these things going? How are you as a leader empowered to make a difference with professional learning?
I'm looking at the chat. I don't see any yet.
That's okay.
I do see someone ask about the 2024 averages, and you will get this slide deck, so you will be able to see those averages. Also, I'd like to say that if you want to talk more about the Elliott averages, please reach out to your state director or to one of us after this, and we'll be glad to help you with that and those comparisons.
Okay, we've got some things coming in. Thanks, Amy. Learning best practice myself and networking. That's great. Starting more communication between our teachers, working together, setting department goals. Yes, that question is up on the screen. So if you can't remember what I said, because I talk fast, go for it and look at that screen. Hopefully you can find that. Looking at individual assessments, collecting individual data, budget appropriated specifically to empower staff to obtain PD. That is exciting. Try to find relevant topics for that professional development. Excellent. Keep putting those in, and we're going to continue moving forward. I want you to think about that question a little bit as we talk about our process for continuous improvement when it comes to professional learning. So when we think about professional learning, we see that as a huge piece of continuous improvement. At Cognia, continuous improvement is who we are. It's what we do. We always say that, you can be better tomorrow than you are today. And that goes with everything that we do. So we start that through that planning process for us to really determine what the needs are when it comes to professional learning, looking at all of those data pieces that Nicole shared and thinking about how we can collaborate to really develop impactful cycles of continuous improvement that are going to include that professional learning to drive those next steps. So what we say to you is for you to think about that planning stage is how do you plan and collaborate? Who are you involved with? Who's part of that process? And what questions are being asked during that planning process? The next step in that continuous improvement cycle is really to think about that shared learning. So having professional learning that builds that clear understanding, that common vocabulary, and shared expectations for all. So how do you determine what those shared expectations are going to be? Who's involved in that? What words are we going to define and say and have a conversation about when we think about engagement, what does engagement look like at our institution? Because it may look different from one institution to another. So having that shared language and that common vocabulary and thinking about where all that learning comes in. Our next step takes us into implementation. How are we going to put it in action? So this is when we work to really share those desired outcomes. We have come up with a plan. We've decided what we're going to do. Now we're going to put it into practice. We're going to put it into action and have that shared learning. So what are you doing with that shared learning at your institutions? How are you making sure everyone's on the same page, getting what they need at their level, and moving all of that work forward? Hopefully, you're finding out what that looks like a little bit through some feedback and coaching. So making sure that all participants that are receiving professional learning are also receiving support and feedback that is timely and really tied directly to that daily practice, that progress monitoring that we have with our students. We also want to have when it comes to that professional learning piece and how we're supporting and coaching our teachers and everyone that's part of that. And then we move to that impact and reflection. We're thinking about how we have the comprehensive findings to really facilitate that data-informed decision-making. Just like we use data to decide what professional learning we needed in the beginning, we want to use data to decide how that professional learning has been impactful, what we need to do with our continuous improvement, and how we want to move things forward.
So we've done lots of talking to you guys about how we've reimagined professional learning, and it's no longer just a day of information. But we thought it would be much more powerful for you to hear from schools that are actually putting it into place. So listen to what Jamie Lassard from Sumter County Schools in South Carolina has to say.
Hi, my name is Jamie Lassard, and I'm from Sumter, South Carolina, where I currently serve as the District Coordinator for Professional Learning. At Sumter School District, we've partnered with Cognia to provide professional learning for our leadership teams over the past 3 years. We've focused on continuous improvement efforts and our strategic planning. This collaborative conversation that we've had with Cognia has ensured that all of our leaders were equipped with the tools and support that they needed to drive meaningful change in their buildings. We knew it was very important to have our leadership buy-in so that they could all speak the same language about the importance of professional learning within our district. We knew that communicating with all stakeholders and speaking the same language when it comes to continuous improvement was imperative for our district's success. And so basically, the professional learning that we offer in Sumter, South Carolina, we make it meaningful. It shifts from obligation to inspiration, and it's less about compliance and more about transformation. It's about helping teachers create the kind of classroom where all of their students thrive. I believe that professional learning is not a one-time event. It's a continuous journey. It's not about fixing something that's bad. And in our district, we like to say it's about getting better every day. It's not about our weaknesses or our areas of improvement, but yet more of an area of refinement. It's about being reflective. And by being reflective, we talk about it's not just looking back at what we did that we didn't like. It's about looking forward with purpose. And the best professional learning we know fuels curiosity. It challenges the assumptions and it turns insight into action. We also know that to truly make an impact, professional learning must be embedded into the culture of the school or the district. It's where we're focusing on teacher needs that drive student success. It's not just about where we are, but where are we going? Where do we want to go? Being reflective with our practice means having measurable outcomes and ongoing growth. It's about moving us forward. Professional learning is not just a destination, as I said before. It's about an ongoing journey of growth. It's being reflective, and it's about impact. What kind of impact can we have on teachers and ultimately student outcomes? By fostering a culture, I believe, of continuous improvement and aligning learning with teacher needs and student success, we create those schools where educators and students thrive. And together we move forward, not just for today, for the future, but for every single one of our students, for their future, which we feel is the most important. Because learning isn't just for students, it's for all of us.
So thanks to Jamie for that little story about Sumter. What I'd like to say, and probably what she leaves us with, is professional learning is so vital to schools. And so changing our mindset about what professional learning should look like is the first step. And that's why we're talking today about how can you reimagine your professional learning. The other partner that we'd like to share is Mandry School District in North Dakota. They used our strategic thinking and planning process to set clear goals, and then that drove their professional learning as they made progress. You can use the QR code to reach it, and we'll also drop it in the chat in just a minute. But we wanted you to be able to hear from schools just like you that have reimagined professional learning, and they are making a difference with teachers and kids. So from there,
I want you to think about professional learning on your campuses and in your institutions. We've given you quite a bit to think about, but we want you to think differently. It's not, as Amy stated, it's not about once every professional learning day. What can you do to reimagine professional learning so that it becomes an experience and it becomes something that teachers and staff and anyone who engages in professional learning wants to grow? Do you have time for that feedback and collaboration? So think, how can you reimagine professional learning experiences at your school or system site?
we'd love for you to list. Oh, you have already started.
Consistency in the feedback. Thank you so much.
Creating
Our
teacher leaders, yes, vital to the process.
research does tell us that teachers want feedback on initiatives. Good. Communication and communities of practice. Good.
That feedback, giving feedback, that's that. How are we giving them timely feedback? So important. Instructional rounds, yes. Teacher ownership, absolutely.
Data collection too. That also helps when you are collecting data and helping them to see that you are getting closer to your intended outcomes and goals for that learning. And when teachers feel successful, it's very much like the students. They will want to strive to do more, be more, and engage the students effectively. These are great.
Yes, you got to bake it into your culture, someone said. I love that. Professional learning is coaching, not evaluation. Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's great. Well, we want to thank you today, but we also want to talk about how Cognia can help you. And so I hope, again, I'll encourage you to scroll back through the chat and look at all the great ideas, because we know learning from each other just makes us better. Cognia wants to be here as your, and if we go back to our mission and vision, as your trusted partner. So we'd love to just have a collaborative conversation with you about what's going on. Brainstorm, how can we help you? Ideas, talk through. I often talk with school leaders that say, sometimes being a school leader is a lonely job because you don't have peers in the building or at the district level that you can talk to. And we'd love just to have those collaborative conversations where you can bounce ideas. We also have professional learning solutions that are linked to your data-informed needs, as we shared earlier. And then finally, we have professional learning solutions that are tailored to districts and schools' unique designs. We don't offer off the shelf packaged programs. We listen to what our institutions and members need, and from there, we help to design tailored programs that will support your teachers' learnings. Again, when we wanted to end with our model because we know how important this model is. We know that we can no longer provide that traditional professional learning. How can we identify needs, tailor the planning, and collaborate along the way? So many of you in the comments today talked about how you have to bring teachers along and teacher buy-in. And then job embedded support with a way to measure the impact. How are we truly making a difference for our kids? And what are our goals? Are we even measuring the right thing? So by continually reflecting, we're able to continue that continuous improvement journey as we move forward. So we are excited that we partner with our schools and institutions to be a part of the ongoing work. So we're going to leave you, I said, with a little homework. So here's today's challenge. How do you reimagine professional learning for your school or district today? What looks different? We've talked about a lot. We have over 100 people that are sharing in the chat ways to change professional learning besides just what we've talked about. So we hope that as you leave today, you'll think about, what can I do differently? What data can I look at? How can I involve my teachers? How can I provide feedback and coaching and reflection? So we want to thank you for joining us. And with that, we'll offer, if there are any questions you would like to put in the chat, we'll be glad to answer them. And then we'll also provide, Rachel, if you just want to go on to the last slide while people are putting something in the chat. This is ways to connect with us. So if you want to have those collaborative conversations, you want to talk with us, bounce ideas, please feel free to join us with the Connect with Us. Or if you want to learn more, there's all the things we've talked about today. We go in depth with what professional learning opportunities that we have available that support the needs of our schools and districts. We want to thank you for joining us today. We know you lead very busy lives, and we appreciate the time, and we encourage you to reimagine your professional learning today. So I do see Pamela put a question. I'm not a data fan, so where do I begin to make data charts for all students? Where do I begin? I think, Pamela, we would love to have a conversation with you about that. But where we like to say is start small. Pick one piece of data. Use that piece of data to begin to inform your decisions. And then you will see that it will begin to add, that people will say, wait, I have this. What about this? Have we looked at this? So more than anything, I'd like to just say, just start. Pick a piece of data, use that to drive what you're doing and move from there.
And if I can add, you guys collect so much data. Start with data you already have, and see what it shows there. So if you want to start with your student performance data, that might be a great place to start. So you don't have to go looking for data if there's something you already collect. Attendance, discipline.
Absolutely. And then someone asked, does anyone have experience with professional learning for support staff and non-certified employees? We find that much of our professional learning carries across those different areas, because while they are not certified teachers, they're still in the classroom supporting the work. And it's vital that they have the same understanding as the teachers, because they're working with our students day in and day out.
And specifically, we do invite all staff in the strategic thinking and planning process. So we have even community members and students and other people as well that not only learn our process, but engage in it.
I love the cohort model. Thank you, Stacy, for adding the cohort model there. Yes, we see lots of schools provide different, and that goes to empowering teachers and really giving them voice and choice in what they're learning and what they need based on what they are identifying as their data. So yes, absolutely, the cohort model works well. Well, we want to thank you guys again. Respect your time. Thanks for joining us. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything from Cognia. We'd love to support you, but most of all, we really want you to reimagine professional learning for your teachers and students. Have a great day.
Thank you all.